So welcome. This is Wondrous Roots, your health from the ground up. My name is Becky Montrone. We have a business here in Keene, New Hampshire called Wondrous Roots, and I am an holistic health care practitioner with a degree in holistic nutrition. And I am certified through the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. I also practice herbalism, so I have a full herbal armamentum is the word in herbal, like herbal pharmacy. It's like your armamentum, like what you use. I do see clients here in private consultation for all manner of health problems, from wellness to severe illnesses such as cancer, Parkinson's, you name it. I also work with people of all ages. So, from preconception, pre-pregnancy to the end of life, earthly life anyway, physical life as we know it. And our business hours, we are in downtown Keene on the third floor of the Miller Forge building, which is on Roxbury Street, which is one of the major tributaries off our central square. And our open door office shop hours are 9:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. Our number here is 603-439-2603. You can also reach out to me via messaging email on my websites, shopwondrousroots.com or wondrousroots.org. Those messages come straight to my private email, and I will get back to you. What else did I want to say? Yeah, we have some of the things that we're sort of known for here. We have a really awesome skincare line, and I've got some cool, this has been very much a group effort. I think the only part I had in it was the idea. And then my husband Dale's been really working on that end, and Chris has been helping with that. But we have a couple of combination gift boxes. Well, they can be gifts for you or gifts for others as we enter the gift season. And I'm about ready to debut those. It might be next weekend. Maybe I'll do it midweek because we're about ready to go. So I think you'll be pleased. Anyway, we have a skincare line that starts with Wondrous Skin Cream. And then from there, we have the lotion, we have a face wash, we have a serum, we have the base oil as a face oil treatment. We have immune skin which is we take the base cream and we make the lotion, and then we make the immune skin for rosacea and problems like that. We also have a fig cream that's sort of like separate because we don't use that base for it. It's a different base, but just got a great review on that from somebody with really problem skin. So that was really cool. But we have a whole skincare line, which is really wonderful. And then we have, I make all kinds of formulas. In fact, I'm going to be working this afternoon while we're closed to get a lot of product back on the shelf, like our Fluens and our Metabolism Up and Nip It in the Bud and, kidney and stone formula. So we have a bunch of formulas. So you can see all the formulas that we have, the herbal formulas and the other products I carry here at shopwondrousroots.com. Okay, I think that's probably it for introduction. We are last weekend in October. So that's kind of exciting. All right, so last week I talked about cholesterol, clearing up the cholesterol confusion. Oh, to participate, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you and we'll hear you speaking, or you can type into the chat like Dale just did, or you can type into the Q&A. And you can decide if you're typing into the chat who you want to see that. So if you don't want me to see it, you can say you want well, you wouldn't know, right? You wouldn't know because you don't know who the other attendees are. But if you want to say something to me that you don't want everybody else to see, let's just put it that way, you can do that. Okay, and you don't have to talk about what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cardiovascular health. And it's going to run into maybe 2 more programs because there's a lot that goes with that topic. So today I'm going to start in with, I've done a PDF presentation and I'm going to start in with that. So I'm going to share my screen. And then my participants over here and my chat box over here. I know I always say that, don't I? And then just move that where I can see it. Okay. You should all be able to see that. So I thought it's important to know, like, rather than just saying, oh, we all know what heart disease is, right? We all know that. So let's just go on with what do we do for it? You know, we talked last week about cholesterol being the great villain and how cholesterol seems to be perhaps the major focus, cholesterol and high blood pressure, I would say, in the mainstream paradigm, the mainstream medicine paradigm that we have today, treating heart disease. We have those are kind of the things we think of. And then we think, well, you know, I'll work from a standpoint of, well, what do I do to help with heart disease? So if we're talking about clotting and stuff like that, I might talk about serrapeptase, talk about keeping the blood vessels strong by using things like hesperidin, vitamin C, the bioflavonoids, you know, things like that. This is what you can do instead of that. But I think it's important whenever, you know, this is what I'm trying to do, as you guys know, build an educational platform on my website, wondrousroots.org, and the research files. So I'm constantly adding to that and making these programs part of that. So I think we need to go back and see, what is heart disease? You know, what is it? How does it happen? What do we do about it? So that's where we are today. And I have to say, I basically used a piece from, this is, you guys know I'm a big fan. Those of you who follow me know I'm a big fan of the Weston A. Price Foundation for when it comes to truth and in diet and in nutritional. I'm trying to get that perfect here, but I can't do it. Do you see I'm struggling with that? Try to get my okay, come on, now come up. I can't get it to come up. Oh well, that's really going to bug me. So just hang on a second. I'm going to stop my share for 1 second and fix it. I just can't stand that. I can't stand it when it's not right. And I don't want to have like 5 parts of 3 slides showing at the same time. I think what I'm going to do is, okay. All right. Now I can work with it. A little technical difficulty, sorry. I'm sorry. But as Emerson said, let us bow and apologize no more. I'll try to not be a perfectionist. Okay. Oh, well, I'll share my screen again. It's not perfect. I don't know. This one just doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. Okay. But anyway, getting to back to the heart of the matter. I'm using this paper by Sally Fallon and Mary G. Innig from the Weston A. Price Foundation. And you guys know, and I'm going to introduce them on the next slide, but this is a great paper. It has a lot of good information kind of going through and the things that I agree with, if you will. So the information that I feel is pertinent and is accurate when it comes to matters such as these. So the paper is actually here. And you can actually, translations, print, post. Anyway, it's on their website and I made a PDF and put it on mine. So that's where that link is. But then if you go to here, the Weston A. Price Foundation, I just want to, So the Weston A. Price Foundation is your source for accurate information on nutrition and health, always aiming to provide the scientific validation of traditional foodways. Traditional foods. People seeking health today often condemn certain food groups, such as the grains, dairy foods, meat, salt, fat, sauces, sweets, and nightshade vegetables. But the wise traditions diet is inclusive, not exclusive. And it's so interesting because when I was doing, like, trying to find images of different things, like, okay, say different images for my presentation on vitamins, they're always the top ones they show you are how you can get these nutrients from plant foods. Because there's that big push to get us away from animal food and get us into plant food for everything. So it's just, this is what we have to fight against. We have to look at the value of traditional diets and what has happened to our health since we have abandoned that, along with many other wise practices. Okay, so What is heart disease? So coronary heart disease is not a single disease, but a complex of diseases of varied etiology. That means sources, cause. Some of the recognized causes of heart disease include damage to the heart muscle or valves due to a congenital defect. So some people have heart disease because of something they were born with. And then also, inflammation and damage associated with various viral, bacterial, fungal, rickettsial, or parasitic diseases, rheumatic fever, or syphilis. So people can end up, I know people who have heart disease because they had rheumatic fever when they were a child, for instance, right? So it damaged the heart. As can genetic or autoimmune disorders in which cellular proteins in the heart muscle are deranged or which disrupt enzymes affecting cardiac function. So you have that. Not all heart disease is something that came about because of poor lifestyle habits or just simply the passage of time. We're also talking about certain times that the heart can be damaged and the cardiovascular system can be damaged. But this is very interesting. Heart disease was relatively rare in 1900. In the year 1900, these factors probably contributed to most cases of heart disease recorded in the early part of the century when rates of infectious diseases were much higher and antibiotics were not in use. So you would get rheumatic fever, you would have, syphilis, you would have those diseases and other infectious diseases. Nevertheless, according to the CDC statistics, heart disease was relatively rare in 1900, accounting for approximately 9% of all deaths in the United States. So that's 124 years ago. Only 9% of all deaths in the United States. But for some reason or reasons, things changed. But by 1950, cardiovascular heart, how do they they're defining that as coronary heart disease. Okay, they're CHD. Sometimes we say CVD, cardiovascular disease. So coronary heart disease, including stroke, was the leading cause of mortality in the US, accounting for 48% of all deaths. We're talking 50 years, a difference from 9% of all deaths to 48%. Now it came down in 1998. These coronary heart disease health problems were accounted for about 38% of all deaths, but we're still up tremendously from that 9% in the year 1900. And also one reason for the decline could be that the victims of heart disease are living longer. We have improved surgical techniques. People go in and they get a stent or they get they get a valve replacement or things like that. And using anti-clotting drugs given during a heart attack, that kind of thing. So we've kind of in the modern medical system figured out how to pull somebody out of a cardiovascular event, let's say, that might otherwise have resulted in a person's death. Of greatest concern is the high rate of heart disease in American men between the ages of 45 to 65 during the period of greatest family and career responsibilities. So heart attack, otherwise known as MI, myocardial infarction, became a new and the most prevalent form of heart disease. So this is very interesting. Heart attack was not always the cause of death due to heart disease. So the interesting thing is that most cases of heart disease in the 20th century are a form that is new, namely heart attack or myocardial infarction, a massive blood clot leading to obstruction of a coronary artery and consequent death to the heart muscle. Myocardial infarction was almost non-existent in 1910 and caused no more than 3,000 deaths per year in 1930. I find this fascinating, don't you? I think, because it's just so natural for us just to think, well, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, it's just always been around and it's just always thinking it's always been the same. But it hasn't. Dr. Paul Dudley White, who introduced the electrocardiograph machine to America, stated that following during a 1956 American Heart Association televised fundraiser, I began my practice as a cardiologist in 1921, and I never saw an MI, a heart attack patient, until 1928. By 1960, there were at least 500,000 heart attack deaths per year in the US. Rates of stroke have also increased, and the cause is similar: blockage in the large arteries supplying the brain with blood. Okay, so the factors that initiate a heart attack or a stroke are twofold. One is the pathological buildup of abnormal plaque or atheromas in the arteries, plaque that gradually hardens through calcification. Blockage most often occurs in the large arteries that feed the heart or the brain. This abnormal plaque, this is very interesting. Catch this point, because this is another thing that was actually new to me. This abnormal plaque or atherosclerosis should not be confused with the fatty streaks and thickening that is found in the arteries of both primitive and industrialized peoples throughout the world. This thickening is a protective mechanism that occurs in areas where the arteries branch or make a turn, and therefore incur the greatest levels of pressure from the blood. Without this natural thickening, our arteries would weaken in those areas as we age, leading to aneurysms and ruptures. With normal thickening, you have to have some thickening with time, because you've had this beating and beating and beating going on and on and on, and you've got these turns and things that that need to be protected. Now, I would say almost like building up like a callus on, if you're a dancer, building up calluses on your feet, right? Otherwise you can't dance. Or my guitar, my guitar calluses, which I just started building back up this past week, on your fingers. So with normal thickening, the blood vessel usually widens to accommodate the change. But with atherosclerosis, the vessel ultimately becomes more narrow, so that even small blood clots may cause an obstruction. So it's an abnormal plaque. It's an abnormal pathological condition. It's not a normal process of thickening. And the other half of the MI is myocardial infarction. I'm going to call it heart attack equation, is the blood clot or thrombus, right? So the thick thrombus, the blood clot, let's think about big, hairy blood clot, that blocks blood flow to the heart or to the brain. And we talked last week, and Dr. Kathy is with us today. Hi, Dr. Kathy. I'm glad you're here. She is with us today, and she just, we talked last week, she just had a basal ganglia stroke a few weeks ago. She's doing well. She's with us today. Thus, any search for the causes of heart disease must consider complex factors in the blood that promote clotting at inappropriate times. That is, other than in response to bleeding from a rupture or wound. Okay, so you're supposed to, our blood needs to clot or we bleed to death. But what is it? There are complex factors that are involved with the blood clotting at inappropriate times. In fact, while a great deal of attention has been focused on the cause and solution to atherosclerosis, the role played by clotting factors in the blood has been relatively neglected. And in a future program, I'm going to really hone in on that when I talk about things that we use, such as serrapeptase and nattokinase, proteolytic enzymes, to break down the fibrin and the excess clotting. And we'll see that in Europe, this approach has been used for many years. In fact, I think serrapeptase is actually prescribed as a prescription drug in Europe. But these other things, like what else is going on? And in that same breath, I would have to say that this is what one of the biggest drawbacks to looking through just focused lenses of cholesterol and high blood pressure, as the mainstream medical system tends to, when it comes to heart disease, is so limiting. And it is no wonder then that we have this huge uptick in cardiovascular disease and deaths by cardiovascular disease. Yet a heart attack due to a clot can occur even in the absence of arterial blockages. However, inflammation may also cause blockages. In fact, a new view of coronary artery disease is that it is an inflammatory process characterized by cycles of irritation, injury, healing, and re-injury inside the blood vessels. The inflammatory response is actually a defense mechanism that helps the body heal, but when the inflammatory process goes awry, plaques may rupture, provoking clots that lead to heart attacks. This is a huge thing. And again, I'll go into this aspect of controlling and preventing heart disease in a future program. So like an overview today, but this is why it's so important. Inflammation plays a role. We need inflammation in order for things to heal, but then the inflammation needs to go down. So I was really torn about today's program because I have a couple of other topics I really want to talk about: palmitoyl ethanolamide, PEA, and the vagus nerve, but they'll come. But I figured it's probably just better to stay on this topic since I started in with that last week. Anyway, palmitoyl ethanolamide. This is the big thing that PEA does. So PEA is it's an endogenous lipid. It's something we make within ourselves. And when we make it within ourselves, its role is to go to where there's inflammation and deal with the inflammation. Okay, so you want that inflammation, and then you have processes in your body, if you've got enough of this going on, that are helping to bring that inflammation down. And that's why we use anti-inflammatory things like glutathione. I have to say glutathione every time. I don't think I actually said it last week. And then, so that's really important, but PEA then, palmitoyl ethanolamide, like if you were to translate it into what we're talking about here, it then turns off the activation of all those inflammatory things like the microglia and the mast cell activation that happens. It just keeps inflammation going. Oh, good. Oh, good, good, good. Dr. Kathy is saying to all of us, I'm going to read it. I will be home on Wednesday. Yay! Out of rehab. So out of inpatient rehab. So I can take my normal supplements like serapeptase, which I haven't taken in a month. Yeah, because they have you on prescription blood thinners. So at least you have that base being covered, but you can get back to doing things. And we can, what's kind of, yeah, I'm sure you do have a long way to go. I'm sure it is such an uphill battle. So again, our prayers for you, Kathy. But again, we can ask, well, I mean, because you've been doing a lot of things that are very excellent for your cardiovascular health for a long time. So why did Dr. Kathy have a stroke? And that would actually be a good part of a program to do, because we know her risk factors. We know she's homozygous for the MTHFR variant C677T, which promotes high homocysteine, which results in excessive clotting. But when you undergo surgery, you can have, especially when there's anesthesia involved, even when I had just some nitrous oxide for a dental procedure, I doubled up my B12 before I went in. I took a massive amount of B12 and folate and glutathione, because those types of drugs deplete those vitamins that keep your homocysteine down. So I would just kind of say that I'm sure there was something involved with that in Kathy's, having this event. She's learning to walk and to move her arm and fingers. Yeah, I can't put myself, I don't really want to put myself in your position. That's a very uncomfortable place to be. But one step at a time. Yeah, all on your right side. Yeah. Are you right-handed, Kathy? Are you right-sided dominant? Yeah, she is. I had a client who had a horrible horseback accident and really broke all of her left, really did a number on her collarbone and shoulder. Left, and she's left dominant. So, anyway, we will continue to pray for you, but glad you're doing so well. Okay. The health and the integrity of the blood vessel walls is another factor that must be considered. So aneurysms, the dilation and rupture of blood vessels due to weakness in the vessel walls, will naturally provoke a clotting response, not to mention the more immediate danger of rapid blood loss. So yes, your aneurysm blows and you've got all this rapid blood loss, but then you're also, what do I want to say, forming clots. In addition, biochemical imbalances in the smooth muscle cells may result in spasms that can be just as effective as a blood clotting, cutting off blood flow to the heart. So spasming, right? And just like clenching that off. And she says moving her fingers is like moving mountains. Oh, 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 oh. And I bet you're exhausted after every day's therapy. I know you're in a really good facility and they probably work you like crazy. Yes, yes, with many S's. Oh, wow. And then finally, arrhythmias. So AFib, right? Or, other rhythmic problems with the heart. Abnormalities in the rhythm of the heart's pumping mechanism can lead to interrupted blood flow, oxygen starvation of the heart muscle, or a complete shutdown of the heart, the so-called cardiac arrest. Regulation of the nervous impulses that govern the heart depends on a large number of factors, from mineral status to the integrity of the myelin sheath. So cardiac arrest is just the heart can seize. So that was, if we want to go back to the side effects of the, what do we want to call them? The needles that were given, that a lot of people were forced to get that didn't want to. One of the cardiac arrest, the seizing of the heart is one of the things that we saw, although we did also see, MI, we also did see things like stroke and that kind of thing. But so cardiac arrest is when the heart seizes. It doesn't necessarily mean that you had a clot, right? Regulation of the nervous impulses that govern the heart depends on a large number of factors, from mineral status, and minerals are super important here in rhythm anomalies. Whenever I have somebody with AFib, I have them on iodine and selenium, and I am going to talk about that a little bit later. And then I'll talk about it in greater detail when I get into specifics on another program. And the integrity of the myelin sheath. Okay, so the myelin sheath, we see that is the nerves, the sheath around the nerves. So somebody with, say, multiple sclerosis or other demyelinating diseases may have problems due to that. Risk factors. What might put a person more at risk for developing heart disease? So these are the risk factors generally cited by the medical orthodoxy. There are dozens of risk factors for heart disease. Those cited most often by medical orthodoxy include high blood cholesterol, smoking, lack of exercise, stress, and overweight. A high level of cholesterol in the blood is a mild risk factor for individuals with familiar hypercholesteremia, cholesterol levels chronically above 350. But for most of us, there is no greater risk of heart disease between cholesterol levels that are high over 300 and those that are low under 200. Now, I do want to go back. I'm going to go back to my other slide, my top slide here, one of the top ones, because I want to open up that article quickly. It's something I didn't put into a slide. Bear with me. Yeah, I'm just going to read this because we talked about this last week, so I didn't want to put it in. But for almost 40 years, the lipid hypothesis, or diet heart idea, has dominated medical thinking about heart disease. In broad outlines, this theory proposes that when we eat foods rich in saturated fat and cholesterol, cholesterol is then deposited in our arteries in the form of plaque or atheromas that cause blockages. If the blockages become severe, or if a clot forms that cannot get past the plaque, the heart is starved of blood and a heart attack occurs. Many distinguished scientists have pointed to serious flaws in this theory, beginning with the fact that heart disease in America has increased during the period when consumption of saturated fat has decreased. I think that right there, that simple statement is huge. The diet heart idea, said the distinguished George Mann, is the greatest scam in the history of medicine. And the chorus of dissidents continues to grow, even as this increasingly untenable theory has been applied to the whole population, starting with low-fat diets for growing children and mass medication with cholesterol lowering drugs for adults. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to read that one. Okay, get back to where I was, wherever that was. Risk factors. Okay. Smoking. This is really interesting. You're going to get a kick, kind of a kick out. Well, I don't know about kick, but you'll find this intriguing, as I did, I think. One factor of apparent importance is smoking, which has been associated in many studies with an increased risk of coronary mortality, even after correction for other risk factors. It is easy to speculate on the mechanism by which smoking causes heart disease. Exposure to fumes containing free radicals may promote the growth of atherosclerotic plaques. Perhaps chronic carbon monoxide intoxication limits the heart's utilization of oxygen. But when it comes to smoking, this is interesting. But the picture is more complex than simple cause and effect. In a multi-year British study involving several thousand men, half were asked to reduce saturated fat and cholesterol in their diets, to stop smoking, and to increase the amount of unsaturated oils such as margarine and vegetable oils, to increase those. Okay, so we, like me and the Weston A. Price Foundation, are going to tell you those are the oils that you need to get rid of. But what has happened over the decades since we've seen such an increase in heart disease? The saturated fats have been demonized, and the unsaturated fats, the vegetable oils, the margarines, those were all promoted as so great for your heart health. Anyway, such as margarine and vegetable oils. After 1 year, those on the good diet, the one that I would call the bad diet, had 100% more deaths than those on the bad diet. 100%, in spite of the fact that those men on the bad diet continued to smoke. In a study of Indians from Bombay and Punjab, researchers found that those from Punjab had 1/5 the number of heart attacks, even though they smoked 8 times more cigarettes. So I am not going to go out and start smoking, and I'm not suggesting that you do, but I'm just saying it's kind of like an easy, well, you smoked, you smoked, so you know, there you go. That's a big, and it could be other things about our cigarettes today too, right? With all of the pesticides and all of the crap that's in the filters. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. But anyway, and while smoking was widespread at the turn of the century, myocardial infarction was not. A heart attack hadn't shown up at the turn of the century back in 1900, but smoking was very widespread. This suggests that there may be factors in traditional diets that protect against the negative effects of smoking. I think it would also point to the fact that tobacco in itself does not contain again, the pesticides, the horrible things that they spray on the tobacco crops to keep a higher yield and keep pests away. Yeah, it also raises the question of whether additives now used in cigarette paper and filters and changes in the curing process itself have exacerbated the harmful effects of cigarette use. Another thought, perhaps the association between smoking and heart disease is really an association with some other factors: stress, biochemical imbalances, nutrient deficiencies that creates the desire or the need to smoke. Often when people quit smoking, they may become nervous and overweight, which may seem a bad bargain of one risk factor in exchange for 2 more. Okay. Exercise. So this is one. Regular physical activity is one of the few risk factors that is proved consistent in all studies. Regular physical activity is inversely associated with mortality from coronary heart disease, and physical activity is the only factor that has shown dose response in the trials. Common sense tells us why exercise may be beneficial. When we exercise, our heart beats more rapidly, the arteries widen to provide more oxygen, and our arterial blood flow improves. So that makes complete sense. And lack of exercise. Lack of exercise may also be a risk factor because it is a marker for something else that is the true cause. People who are overweight, for example, are less inclined to exercise. Prosperous people who have leisure time are more likely to exercise than those who must work long hours to make ends meet. And we know that heart disease in westernized nations is more prevalent among the poor. Dietary factors may make people less inclined to exercise. An interesting finding in the Framingham study was that those who ate the most saturated fat, the most calories, and the most cholesterol were the most physically active. They also weighed the least and had the lowest levels of serum cholesterol. So that's interesting. You have to go back if you're interested and look at that paper and find the Framingham study. But again, things that are not so easy. And also, we know that heart disease in westernized nations is more prevalent among the poor. And the poor in this country certainly tend to be people who are more reliant on government support for their food. So through what we used to call food stamps or e-cards now, I think they're called, you know, the things that the being in bed together with the processed food industry in what people who are poor are able to eat. And what they're able to purchase. So again, you know, I always will say there's no excuse, right? Because you can make good food for little money if you make soup. All right, if you make really good soups and you shop and you buy and you feed a lot of people, there's ways to get around it. But most people, I would say, in our modern society are not, I won't say most people, I know there's a lot of people who do that and make an effort, but a lot of people can just be, you know, given food that's just terrible and that has a lot of the things in it that that don't create health. Stress. Many doctors have noticed that heart attack strikes in the months just after severe emotional trauma, loss of a spouse or a close friend, bankruptcy, layoff, or a disappointment. We know that grief changes many aspects of the body chemistry, making us more vulnerable to all sorts of diseases, not just heart disease, but also cancer, allergies, tuberculosis, depression. But mankind has always suffered loss and grief. The question is why these traumas cause heart attacks today, but did not in 1900. What about high blood pressure? For blood pressure, the situation is much more complicated. And I went to a different piece from Weston A. Price for this paragraph because they didn't really address blood pressure in that particular article. Much of the one blood pressure fits all approach comes from a confusion over what a risk factor really represents. Most risk factors for heart disease are merely risk markers that simply have some statistical association with an increased incidence of coronary events. There are over 300 risk factors for heart attacks, including a deep earlobe crease. Now, people have asked me that. Premature vertex baldness, high selenium toenail levels, having a pot belly, having been born in northern Finland, not having a daily nap, or drinking more or less than 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day. Attempting to treat or remove such markers will accomplish nothing since they do not cause coronary disease. The same can be true for lowering an elevated systolic or diastolic blood pressure unless the treatment is directed at what is causing the problem, which is usually not clear. So that's why I say blood pressure and health. I intend to cover this in greater depth in an upcoming presentation, probably one dedicated simply to blood pressure. It's another confusing and misunderstood health topic, so it deserves a focused program and discussion. Beyond risk factors. Oh, Susan, I'm just seeing your chat. Have you read an increase in risk in heart disease with varicose veins present, or an increase in heart disease with varicose veins, or an increase in aneurysms? No, I just haven't looked at that. But we know that varicose veins are very prevalent, and aneurysms, I believe. I don't know if they're more increased, but I would think all of those things are increased. If we're looking at coronary heart disease being increased, I would say they would all probably have moved up, you know, in tandem. But that's a good question. I'm going to look into it. The ABCs of nutrient deficiencies. Okay, so lacking nutrients is something that we're going to spend probably most of the rest of the time here on that. So in 1930, Dr. Weston Price published an interesting paper in the Journal of the American Dental Society. For years, Dr. Price had been analyzing the amount of vitamin A and vitamin D in butter fat. He noted that these nutrients were most plentiful in the spring and fall when cows had access to rapidly growing green grass. During the winter and the dry summer months, levels of these vitamins in butter fat declined or disappeared completely. So Dr. Price also tabulated the number of deaths from heart attacks in local hospitals. When he plotted those two variables against time on the same graph, he found that deaths from heart disease were inversely proportional to the vitamin content in the butter. In other words, when nutrient levels were high, deaths from heart disease were low. And when nutrient levels were low in the winter and summer, deaths from heart disease were high. He found that this pattern in many different localities, even in areas in the far north where there was only one vitamin peak in midsummer due to the short growing season. So again, grass-fed milk, grass-fed, cows, products from grass-fed cows. That's like one of the big bonuses there, and things that are missing in our modern day. Fat-soluble vitamins, overlooked. Heart disease researchers have largely ignored the possible role of vitamin A and D in protecting the heart, probably because these fat-soluble vitamins are found only in the foods they have demonized, animal fats. Yet both nutrients play numerous important roles in the body chemistry, principally as catalysts for protein and mineral assimilation. Both nutrients support endocrine function and protect against inflammation. Vitamin A is needed for the conversion of cholesterol into steroid hormones and, in fact, is rapidly depleted by stress. Cholesterol-lowering drugs increase the body's need for vitamin A. Vitamin D helps prevent high blood pressure and protects against spasms. As vitamin D is needed for calcium absorption, it contributes to a healthy nervous system and helps prevent arrhythmias. So keeping the calcium out of the arteries, vitamin D with K2. K2 is also found in butter. So you have the vitamin A and the D and the K2 in butter. Now, what's interesting, excuse me, what's interesting is that I have recently started a lot more people on vitamin A from fish liver oil. Little capsules I get from Bluebonnet Nutrition because they're the only ones I can find that are just pure vitamin A from fish liver oil. This is because most supplement companies have caved into the plant thing. And everything's, plant-based. So we have beta carotene, but beta carotene is not vitamin A. It does not take the place of vitamin A. And it does not, for many people can't convert beta carotene to vitamin A. And we need a lot more vitamin A than is present in most supplements that we purchase, like a multivitamin. Vitamin A is also needed to convert the inactive T4 thyroid hormone to the active T3. And thyroid medications also increase the body's need for vitamin A. So this was probably over the last couple of years, I started adding vitamin A supplementation to everybody I work with a thyroid problem for that reason. Vitamin E and cardiovascular health. In the 1960s, a pair of Canadian doctors named Wilfred and Evan Shute claimed to prevent recurrence of problems in coronary heart disease patients with the administration of vitamin E. They pointed out that lack of vitamin E in the American diet is partially due to the milling process, which eliminates the highly perishable wheat germ, a significant source of vitamin E, the wheat germ part of it. High levels of omega-6 fatty acids from commercial vegetable oils can actually raise the body's requirements for vitamin E. So that's another thing. We swapped out the saturated fat and told everybody to go to polyunsaturated vegetable oils as a means of protecting their heart, especially if you've had a heart attack. That's what your doctor told you. Go on the statin drug and cut out all your salt and all your fat and stick with the omega-6, the PUFAs. Vitamin E is an antioxidant that can prevent free radicals from causing damage at the cellular level, and it plays an essential role in cellular respiration, particularly in the cardiac muscles. Vitamin E makes it possible for these muscles and their nerves to function with less oxygen. It promotes dilation of the blood vessels and inhibits coagulation of the blood by preventing clots from forming. I remember when I was following Adele Davis during my pregnancy with my daughter Krista, vitamin E, that was like one of the big things. She made sure you got enough vitamin E to prevent clots from forming. And because women tend to, when they're pregnant, with the weight on the vasculature leading to the legs, tend to have a tendency to perhaps develop varicose veins. So it was kind of like a protection there. Vitamin C. So Dr. Linus Pauling, famous for his work on vitamin C, proposed vitamin C deficiency as a possible cause of coronary heart disease. A 6-year Finnish study linked low blood levels of vitamin C to increased risk of heart attack during subsequent years. As an antioxidant, vitamin C protects against free radical damage. It has the effect of making oxygen metabolism more effective and may also help prevent clot formation. Vitamin C is essential for the production of collagen. Kathy has a question. Is pure encapsulation vitamin A the right kind? Let me look at it really quick, Kathy. Encapsulation, vitamin A, 120 salt gels. Yeah, it's from Norwegian. It's from Norwegian cod liver oil and vitamin A palmitate. For you, it's fine. And at 3,000 micrograms is 10,000 IU, and that's fine. If you were a pregnant woman, I would just like it plain from cod liver oil. Palmitate, I think in high doses could be toxic, but for you, no worries. So good question. Okay. Vitamin C, this is the big thing. Vitamin C is essential for the production of collagen and therefore protects the integrity of the artery walls. And vitamin C is used up very quickly during periods of stress. So again, the stress connection, right? But just elaborate a little bit because this is a very important thing. Linus Pauling maintained that the breakdown of collagen in the arteries was the cause of heart disease because, or of plaque formation anyway, because of the fact that the collagen, your arterial epithelium is not smooth and supple. And so it is damaged by inflammation and it forms, it has damaged areas that now have to be patched up, and that scab is plaque. And so he said, you know, what you really have to do is really set down beautiful collagen floor in your arteries, a really rich collagen epithelium, if you will, so that you aren't having injury that needs to be patched up with plaque. Now, I didn't know this. We talked about small particle LDL last week and how small particle LDL is the only form of LDL, of cholesterol, that's harmful, and that's because it's inflammatory, and that we make it light and fluffy and we increase the size of the small particles by eating saturated fat. But here I read, and I'm reading to you, another type of cholesterol is a small particle LDL, LPA, which occurs in humans, other primates, and guinea pigs, organisms that do not manufacture vitamin C. Nobel laureate Linus Pauling and his colleague Matthias Raff proposed that our bodies produce LPA to compensate for low levels of vitamin C. Now, I had never seen that before now. They caused atherosclerosis in guinea pigs by depleting their bodies of vitamin C. Vitamin C depletion caused small particle LDL, to appear in the plaque. A high level of LPA is a risk factor for heart disease. That does not mean that LPA is the cause. The cause may be vitamin C deficiency in association with other factors such as low levels of vitamin B3, niacin, which also lowers LPA. That's right. And I did not mention that when I did my program last week. And I don't usually use niacin with people to lower LPA, small particle LDL, because of that really annoying flush that most people can't tolerate, because you take quite high doses of niacin and you just feel like you're prickly and burny all over, and you turn bright red, and just people don't like it. But it does lower LPA. Consumption of trans fatty acids cause levels of LPA to rise. Trans fatty acids, think margarine. It's a great example. While consumption of saturated fats lowers blood levels of small particle LDL. We talked about that. Now, the vitamins folate, B12, and B6. And here we come into what I was talking about with Kathy, Dr. Kathy, a little earlier. Research Researcher Kilmer McCulley has found a positive relationship. I mean, there's tons of information on this, but in folic acid or folate, B6 and B12, and severity of hardening or stiffness of the arteries, as well as the buildup of pathogenic plaque. Vitamin B6 and vitamin B12 are found almost exclusively in animal products, the foods that proponents of the lipid hypothesis advise us to avoid. And I would point out that this relates to homocysteine, elevated homocysteine, leads to hyperthrombosis, accelerated blood clotting, people with the MTHFR mutation, and the C677T variant are at high risk for high homocysteine, are at risk for high homocysteine. And so we employ the use of these vitamins to counter that tendency. Another nutrient found exclusively in animal products, particularly in red meat and organ meats, is coenzyme Q10, which serves as an antioxidant and as fuel for the mitochondria in the cells. In the body, CoQ10 is most concentrated in the heart muscle cells. It seems to be helpful in reducing inflammation and has been used successfully in the treatment of heart disease. Cholesterol-lowering drugs greatly increase the body's need for CoQ10 because the same liver that makes cholesterol also makes CoQ10. And so when you when you shut off the production of cholesterol, you also shut off the production of coenzyme Q10. I just think brilliant scientists could have come up with something better than that. I don't know about you, but that's what I think. Now, minerals. Magnesium, of course. According to Dr. Roger Williams, an inadequate supply of magnesium may result in the formation of clots and contribute to calcium deposits in the blood vessels, right? Magnesium is that which dissolves, that mineral that dissolves excess calcium. Heart attack patients improve their survival chances from 50 to 82% when given intravenous magnesium in the first 24 hours following myocardial infarction. Copper and zinc. Many other minerals play a role in cardiovascular health. Copper and zinc, for example, are contained in enzymes that the body uses to diffuse free radicals and help create healthy collagen. These minerals are most easily assimilated from animal foods. Yes, zinc and copper, basically in protein foods, animal protein foods. And so again, selenium and iodine. Deficiency of selenium has been linked to coronary heart disease and is associated with Keyshawn disease, characterized by fibrotic lesions in the heart. In conjunction with vitamin E, selenium has been used successfully to reduce or eliminate angina attacks. Soils in most of Finland are deficient in selenium, and they were also deficient in was it vitamin D or vitamin A? Maybe both. And may account in part for the fact that heart disease in that country is high. A national program to add selenium to the soil, initiated in 1985, may offer partial explanation for the decline in heart disease in Finland, although the decline did begin before the selenium enrichment program was instituted. Maybe they started using more of the A and the D and some other things in their diets. One of the most significant findings, iodine, from recent studies is the link between low iodine levels and an increased risk of coronary artery disease. Coronary artery disease occurs when the arteries that supply blood to the heart muscle become hardened and narrowed due to plaque buildup. This condition can lead to chest pain, shortness of breath, and in severe cases, heart attacks. Research indicates that individuals with lower levels of iodine have nearly twice the likelihood of developing coronary artery disease compared to those with higher iodine levels. This is a different source. If you want to see it, you can go there because this was not in the paper that I've been referring to throughout. It's easy to make the case that in spite of our prosperity, the actual nutrient content of our foods has declined during the last 70 years. A number of researchers have cataloged the decline of minerals in our soils due to intensive farming practices. Most milk in the USA today comes from cows housed in confinement dairies. They are fed dry feed and never see the green grass their bodies need to make large quantities of vitamin A and vitamin D. Isolated isomers of vitamin D that are added to milk in an attempt to rectify this situation. Processed food, usually based on sugar, white flour, and vegetable oils, has replaced many nutrient-dense foods that were eaten routinely in the past. I think right there, we're talking to the heart of the problem. No pun intended. Yeah. Few Americans eat liver on a weekly basis. or take cod liver oil as our ancestors did. Animal lard. Yes, animal lard. Doesn't that pig look happy? Nor do they use lard, which is another rich source of vitamin D. Like humans, pigs can get sunburned. And like humans, they make vitamin D through the action of sunlight on their skin and store the nutrient in their fat. Pigs raised in confinement will die if not exposed to UVB light, the wavelength needed for vitamin D production. 50 years ago, lard contributed important nutrients to the American diet, but few people use it today. Yeah, that's a great thing to add to cook with. And, you're using good bacon or whatever, use your bacon fat, use your animal fats to cook with. Very popular in Jewish households was the, Kathy, you can probably help me with that, but it's the fat from the chicken. And they use it to make matzah balls and to make their soups and things like that they use around Passover and other holidays. So other factors and associations: infection, thyroid disease, environmental toxins. A number of pathogens have been associated with the development of coronary heart disease or been found in the atherosclerotic lesions on autopsy, including both viruses and bacteria. These pathogens have been around as long as man has lived on the earth. The culprit, therefore, is not the microbes, but a compromised immune system, which can no longer deal with them appropriately. A healthy immune system depends on an array of nutrients, including vitamin A, vitamin C, and various minerals that play an antioxidant role. One of the most tragic aspects of the cholesterol campaign is that it has caused Americans and Europeans to abandon fats that provide protection against infection. Not only do animal fats carry vitamin A, they also contain palmitoleic acid, which is omega-5, which we find in pomegranate. A 16-carbon monounsaturated fatty acid that has strong antimicrobial properties. Butterfat and coconut oil contain fatty acids that have similar properties. They protect against viruses and pathogenic bacteria and enhance the immune system, like lauric acid and monolaurin. Areas of the world where coconut is consumed have low levels of heart disease. And yet we were told by the heart disease modern campaign, we got to get rid of the tropical oils, and go to peanut oil and corn oil and vegetable oil and Crisco. Get rid of the lard and get your vegetable Crisco. Then the thyroid heart connection. Thyroid insufficiency has been identified as a risk factor for heart disease, but treatment with thyroid hormone replacement does not necessarily improve the outcome. Hormones taken orally may have unexpected effects compared to those produced by the body, effects that may increase the risk of heart disease, such as the provocation of arrhythmias. Thyroid health depends on iodine status, but other factors are involved. Selenium is too. Vitamin A, for example, plays a key role in thyroid health. I talked about that earlier. As individuals with poor thyroid function have difficulty converting carotenes and plant foods into true vitamin A, they must obtain adequate vitamin A from animal foods. Unfortunately, patients with thyroid problems are often advised to follow a low-fat diet because they are prone to heart disease. Oh, I'm telling you, it is so frustrating. Many other theories have been proposed to account for the current epidemic in coronary heart disease. And I would say there's probably a good, perfect storm situation going on here. Chlorine and fluoride added to water, pesticides that mimic human estrogens or that provoke free radical reactions, carbon monoxide fumes, industrial chemicals, artificial lighting, synthetic vitamins, minerals that are toxic or that are consumed in toxic amounts, pasteurization and homogenation of milk, legal and illegal drugs, consumption of coffee and other stimulants and additives in processed foods. Most are factors unique to the 20th century and all need further study. I would agree with everything except probably the coffee. I think coffee has a lot of health benefits, but maybe the stimulant part of it for some people, I don't know. Who will do this work? Get this, right? Even today, all but a small fraction of the research dollar still goes to further study of the lipid hypothesis. And vested interests have the power to prevent funding for studies that may prove embarrassing. So again, we have all this money that goes into studies, but they're just going to keep trying to prove their erroneous theory and perpetuate it, right? Because there's nothing that sounds better than ka-ching to the ears of big pharma. So in closing, the next time I'll delve more deeply into the role of diet, the foods we should be eating, the foods we should be avoiding. Also, in the series on heart and cardiovascular health, I will be reviewing the various nutrients and supplements we can incorporate into our daily regimens to support strong, healthy, durable veins, as well as a strongly pumping heart. I hope you finding this as fascinating as I am. I really am. I think it's so exciting to have so much power. Like I said there, don't just go with the flow, go with the no. And we have so much more power than we realize we do. And I think what I really love is, and when I get into food and diet more, which I'll probably do next week, because I just really love that part of the whole thing. Because food is wonderful, isn't it? Don't you love? I mean, we love to cook. We love to purchase healthy food, and we love to cook and make good food. And you don't have to spend a fortune to do that. Again, I told you our idea of fast food is our leftovers, which we will repeat usually like 4 nights a week. This past week, I think I put in my newsletter last week the recipe for Bee's unstuffed cabbage. And I made that on Monday, and we had it through Thursday, and served it, with different whatever. But that was great. We come home, we both come home from work. It's really great. You heat it up, no microwave. Put something with it. You might want a salad or something like that. And then so you get a lot of meals. And if you're feeding a lot of people, again, one pot type meals are very good. Usually one pot type meals have a lot of color in them, a bunch of different vegetables, spices, that kind of thing. That's what you want to do. So eating well does not have to be something that you can't do because of money, for most people, or at least most people who are able to go out there and seek ways to make their health improved. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And next week, again, I'll continue on probably again with diet, and it'll be fun. I think next time I'll probably also include like some recipes, some heart healthy recipes and stuff like that, because I love looking at recipes and things, and that's really fun. So anyway, I'm 5 minutes after, so I'm going to say goodbye. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see each other next week.